Dr. Ganguly, other faculty members of this institute, Dean Dr. Devashish Dapto, our Director Sir, and all the PGTs and students. At the very outset, I would like to convey my sincere thanks to the organization for giving me this opportunity to share some of my thoughts on biomedical ethics. Now, as a part of NNC curriculum, all PGTs are supposed to conduct some curricular research, and the purpose is to learn the methodology and techniques of conducting some scientific research, because ultimately a country expects some contribution by these trained faculty professionals for future development of medical science. Now, research is a very complex kind of task. It's not an easy task. So to conduct research, there are many critical issues like research methodology, then calculating the sample size, then finding the right kind of population, then collection of data, then analyzing the data, and then, of course, observation and results, and finally publication. Now, see, there are many different aspects of a research study, but I'm not going to discuss on the research itself, but I'll be talking, I'll try to share some of my thoughts on certain aspect of this research, that is bioethics or ethics in research. So research is a big thing, and ethics is a part of that whole thing. So while conducting a research, any research, scientific research, I mean, this ethics is a very integral part for conducting a scientific research. So before conducting any research study, one must know some basic principles of bioethics. Now, I have been allotted 2 topics. It may take a longer time because these are quite big area. But firstly, I'd like to discuss about some principles of bioethics. And I'll be talking on this basic concept of basic concepts of ethics, then professional ethics, ethics in biomedical research, and then eugenics, euthanasia, professional misconduct. Sorry. Professional misconduct, yes. And then eugenics, little bit. And Guatemala study, Nuremberg Rule, Declaration of Helsinki will not before principles of medical ethics, bioethics, in compound symptoms. Some references I'll also give for the study. Now, hello. Why the feeling is not coming? Look at it. Yes, right, thank you. So, what is ethics? Before going to the further, details of ethics principles, we must first understand what we mean by ethics. That this understanding is very important. So, ethics basically refers to the set of moral code of conduct. Our director and previous speaker has already mentioned that this is the set of moral conduct. So, ethics basically refers to a set of moral code of conduct. Moral code of conduct. It is not one thing. It's a set of things related to your moral values. So this is something that relates to moral code of conduct to be followed by civil society. It's not for researchers. Ethics applies to everyday life, everybody. So that is the main essence of ethics. So ethics is nothing new. It is not only for the researchers. Ethics is there in our day-to-day life also. So it's a set of moral code of conduct. So what does that do? Actually, a system of moral values and correct behavior. So it's a question of values. How do we see things? How do we respect things? How do we behave in a particular way? So it's a matter of moral values and correct behavior. These are all related to basic human values. These are nothing very, unusual thing. These are related to our model human values. So we can also say that it's a branch of philosophy that deals with values pertaining to human conduct. So how do we behave in our professional life, in our day-to-day life? So it is basically a set of conduct, in our behavior, and our moral values. And this helps us in deciding rightness and wrongness of action. So every day in our life we do something. So while doing something, we need to decide whether am I doing the right thing or I am doing some wrong. So this basically this decision is related to your ethical values. So it is basically goodness or badness of motives and aims. So do's and don'ts while doing something, taking some action. So this is the simple meaning of ethics. I'm talking about ethics. So bioethics is different. I'll come to that later. So this is the simple meaning of ethics. Now, okay.
রেকর্ডেড এবার উনি বলছেন তাই তো কোথায় আছিস এখন একটা প্রিন্ট আউট দেবো ওটা নিয়ে যাবে কারেন্টের সিগনেচারের আমি এটা প্রিন্ট করে দিই হ্যাঁ আসুন এসছে
So ethics actually it gives us the guiding principles. Basically, ethics are concerned with certain principles, and what this principle, how this principle will help us. These principles will help us to make right decision. Okay? So these set of principles are nothing but the ethics, and these principles come from our values, human values, moral values.
বস
Guiding
তুমি
principles.
বস একদম থেমে চুমে
And
একাকার
it's, as I have said, applies to our digital life, guides our behavior, helps in decision making, and means of deciding. So this principles helps us to decide about our future action. So that is the basic purpose of ethics, and it is primarily concerned with honesty, fairness, justice, and respect. These are certain things. These are a matter of values. These issues are nothing but values.
ভাই
It is concerned with honesty, with fairness, justice, and also to some respect. So without ethics, we can go without ethics. So what will happen if we go without ethics, without honoring the ethical, following the ethical principles? What will happen? Our actions may not be morally correct or justified.
সাউন্ড আসছে
Without
না কিন্তু
ethics, our conduct
জুমে
will violate. It will violate
জামিলকে
many
ফোন
things.
করে বল জুমে
Like
সাউন্ড আসছে না
human values, cultural norms.
আমি প্রিন্ট আউট করছি
And also,
সার্টিফিকেটটা কে
will be
বেরিয়ে চলে গেলেন
morally incorrect. So ethics will help us so that we can behave correctly, so that we honor the moral values. We follow the totally approved norms. Without it, we cannot take right action. This is the simple purpose and simple broad meaning of ethics.
তাহলে দেখো এতক্ষণ বসে রইলো ডিজিটাল
So morality. Then what is morality? We need to understand that also. Morality is the concept of right or wrong. So in our day-to-day life, there can be many situations when we need to decide between the two. So we need to decide, will this be right or that will be wrong. So that between you need to choose from the right course of action and avoid the wrong course of action.
সাউন্ড খুব
So it
আস্তে
comes
আসছে
from our moral sense of sorry,
কিসে আসছে রে
moral
সাউন্ড
sense of values. And this morality, these are basically
স্পিকারেই তো আছে
socially approved norms. So all of us belong to some society, and every society has got some set of approved norms. everything is not permitted in every society. In certain societies, something is allowed, in other societies, it may not be allowed. So, the norms, moral norms, actually comes from the approved social norms. Basically, ethics is concerned with universally approved norms that are related to your moral sense of values. So, it helps us in making decisions and behavior. So, philosophy, ethics is philosophy that deals with right and wrong, moral class. I have already mentioned, and it is also concerned with rules and set of principles that helps us to behave in a right manner, and it is also concerned with duties and application of that. So this is the basic concept of, ethics. Now, ethics. Ethics are basically related to
আরেকটা হয়ে যাবে স্যার, এটা একটু সার্টিফিকেট তো স্যার একশো মতন হবে,
question of
আপনার
taking
একটা
right
ডিজিটাল
action.
সিগনেচার বা
So
সিগনেচারের
ethics
কপি
actually
নাকি সাইন
deals
করতে
with this.
পাঠাবে লাগবে
Are we doing the right thing, or are we doing
আজকে হলে আজকে
anything wrong? Are we doing any wrong? So whenever we take some action that can
সাইন
have
করবেন স্যার,
different kind
একশো
of
দিয়ে দেবেন।
implication.
আচ্ছা,
we need
তাহলে
to
আমি ওখানে
think
পাঠাবো
whether
সার্টিফিকেট গুলো,
that
ঠিক
can
আছে তাহলে
be wrong.
হ্যাঁ 100
Is
জন
there
হবে,
any risk for the
তাহলে আমি এর মধ্যে
participants,
পাঠাবো।
for the people involved? Is it fair to do this? And
হ্যাঁ সেটা ওই যেখানে আপনার অফিসে আমি গেছিলাম স্যার।
benefit for the person or the community at large? And are we doing any
ঠিক আছে,
justice?
কারণ স্যার
So on and so forth.
সার্টিফিকেটে
So these are certain questions,
গ্রেড
certain
বসাতে
issues
বলেছে।
that are addressed by
সেই
this
আমরা যে
ethics.
সার্টিফিকেটটা আপনাকে
So
দেখিয়েছিলাম
ethics are certain
এটা
set
গ্রেড
of
হয়নি, আমি এখন সেটা প্রিন্ট আউট
principles
করতে গেছিলাম।
overall
সেটা নেই,
to answer these issues.
হ্যাঁ আমি
Take care of these issues. Is that clear?
আর স্যার
Okay. Now come to bioethics. Now what is
বড়
bioethics?
ম্যাডামের সাথে
Previous to this, I
খুব
have
ভালো লাগলো
discussed
স্যার,
the basic
আমারও ভালো লাগলো, থ্যাংক ইউ
ethics.
আমাদের হসপিটালটা দেখলেন স্যার একটু,
Concept.
আমাদের হসপিটালটা
Now let's
দেখলেন।
come to
হ্যাঁ
the concept of bioethics.
আসবো পরে, আমার
It's a subset of ethics which is related to
একদম
biological science and particularly research. So this is a subset of ethics. This is nothing new, nothing separate, different. It is a subset of ethical principles which applies to, in biomedical science, in medical science, biology, and of course, in all medical sciences. So that is the subset of ethics. Now, in our country, not only in our country, presently we can find many different systems, medical systems are in practice. We have homeopathic system, Ayurveda system in India, very old, ancient method of system. Medical system, Ayurveda system, we have homeopathy, and we have allopathy, also called English medicine. So now, over the years, after the British people, we actually got that allopathy system, national support, government support, and allopathy is the system. Also, so they are also equally important. So, there are different systems. Now, this system are different. All the systems have got their own unique kind of pattern, system, style, and concept. But there is only one thing which is common for all the different systems. What is that? That is the professional standard of conduct. Is that okay? Homeopathy system is different from allopathy system.
তাহলে স্যার
Allopathy
তোমার
system
গাড়িটা
is
একদিন
different
চালাতে হবে।
from Irish medicine, Ayurveda system. There are many other systems. So all system has got their unique own style of what principles. So they are different in many ways. But there is only one thing that is common in all the different systems. And that is professional standard of conduct. So all professions should stick to some particular professional standard of conduct. Okay, and this standard of conduct is nothing but your ethics. So ethics is something which is common for all the different systems. So ethics is all about professional standard. We know how and we know harm to the patient. If you cannot do any good, it's not possible that we can cure every patient. We can always be successful in our endeavor. But one thing we always remember, if you cannot do anything good, that is okay. It's beyond your scope. But you cannot never ever do any harm to anybody. So whenever we will be dealing with a patient or anything, any crisis, will not be successful in solving all issues. But we need to remember that we cannot do any harm. Never ever you can do any harm to anyone. Be it your participant for a research study, be it in
সমুর কথা শুনে
general, be
যাচ্ছে
a patient. So you can
সাদা
never
গাড়ি ফাদা
ever
গাড়ি কি সব
do
বলছে
any harm to the patient. That is the crux of the essence of the
বনেটটা দেখা যায় তো ভালো
and
উপরে উঠানো
I
যায় না
will explain this.
এটা না?
There are principles of
এই তো
the
যেরকম আছে
ethics.
এবং বেশ স্মুথ
না,
এগুলো ঠিক আছে
So this is
আর
bioethics.
হচ্ছে তোমার স্টার্ট
Now,
করলে
professional ethics. What is professional ethics? So
86%
profession, all we are all professionals. No? After pursuing this particular
ব্যাড
degree,
হচ্ছে মুশকিল হয় কোনটা এই
you
বাপাটা কোনো
profession
ফাংশন
you have, you possess specialized knowledge to deal with certain
না
health issues in your
সাউন্ড
own
তো বেশ
system.
ভালো
So you are definitely all of
সাউন্ড
us.
তো বেশ ভালো
Now, ethics that is related to any particular profession, that is nothing but your professional ethics. So every profession must have certain standard, and all professionals must adhere to those standards. So professional ethics, no ethics can, no profession can exist without ethics. So every profession, because professionals they have some specialized knowledge on that particular field, and there must be something. Okay, so no profession is possible that can exist without the presence of ethics.
আমাদের হচ্ছে
So similarly, in our profession also we have so that is the professional
এটা তো
ethics. So
অটোমেটিক
whenever you complete your professional
এটাতে
degree,
তো তোমার ম্যানুয়াল তুমি ড্রাইভ আমাকে ফোন করে যাচ্ছে জামিন কি বলছে
whenever you are working as a professional, you must
এই সমুটা কোথায়
mandatory for us for complying. So that is professional ethics, and responsible to adhere to these standards of ethical practice and conduct. So medical ethics is another set of professional ethics, and not restricted. But as I said, this ethics is not restricted to treatment. Doctors are supposed to treat the patients, manage the health situation, but it is not, ethics is not restricted to treatment only. It equally applies to other professional activities like research, because only medical professionals can undertake research. So ethics is equally applicable for conducting research. That is again research ethics, and we are particularly today we are focused on this research ethics, and we can divide it into say publication ethics. So for publication also there are certain set of principles. You need to adhere to those principles when you are going for some publication. I mean, so that is a discuss on that. I'll discuss about basic level of biomedical. Now,
যে আমাকে এখন কিছু বলেনি
এটা তো তোমার কেন করছে ইলেকট্রিকটা জানো ইলেকট্রিকের তো সেকেন্ড পার্টটা করা নেই
main thing. Basically,
আমি কালকে তো ফোন করেছিলাম
10 মিনিট 15 মিনিট
বললো তো ওটাই হবে তো
সব ঘরে নিয়ে
বলছি ওটা তাহলে কি করবে
ওরা হচ্ছে
Yeah,
accept করছে তিনি দুনিয়ার
so the way we talk, the way we live our life, to help everyone in this society. So this saying is very interesting, and it's that human being are not born, we are made. So all of us are made. Made by what? Made by my family, made by my society, made by my culture, made by my good things, made by my other things, environment, everything. So that is there in the society. So we learn most of our behaviors, most of human behaviors are learned. That is again also something we need to remember. That our behavior, we have learned this behavior. Dress that you wear, the food that you are used to. So they say that all human, most of our human behavior, except some basic reflexes. These reflexes are something that we are born with. At the time of God has given us other behaviors, other part behaviors, these are learned. So all behaviors are learned. So behaviors are learned. We usually follow these socially approved norms. See, knowingly or unknowingly, all of us, we are following the approved norms. There are certain things that is approved by the
Oh,
society. There are
কোনো
certain
ব্যাপারই নেই।
things which are not approved by the society.
ওইটাই দেখ,
Socio-cultural norms. So those things which are approved by the norms, we try to always try to follow those norms. And we try to avoid those things which are not allowed
হয়নি।
in our existing, I mean, present society. So that is a normal human behavior.
জামিল কি করছে এটা?
আমি বলি তাহলে আছে কানেকশন প্রবলেম সবাইকে মিউট করে দেবো
So in this society, there are certain things, many different things are there which ultimately guide our behavior. And ethics is one of those, I mean, determining in terms of while you are, taking a patient or a treatment, or while you are conducting some research, this ethics is something that will determine your behavior. Next. Next one. Yes. Which here. So this is a small table that shows the different determinants that ultimately behave in the particular way that controls our behavior. Like this, like say customs. In the society, there are certain customs we need to. All members of that society need to follow those customs. So our behavior, we try to follow the customs. So customs is something that determines some of our behavior. Then morality, of course, your sense of human, morality is that sense, moral sense. That will also behave, help you to behave in a certain way, spiritually, religiously. Etiquette, that is also something that also determines some of your behavior. And then laws, there are 7 laws. You cannot break those laws. If you break those laws, you will be punished. So that also controls some of our behavior. So these laws are also important. And lastly, ethics. Ethics is another thing that applies to human behavior. So ethics is something that is also very important. Not only these customs, morality, ethics, etiquette, law. Ethics is also something that will also help us to decide about our action. Like say professional values, integrity, fairness. Sir has already mentioned. These are something which also helps us: integrity, fairness, justice, respect for others, non-maleficence. These are nothing but the broad principle of bioethics. We'll come to that later. So please have a look that it is not only the ethics, like other things, like say customs, morality, etiquette, and law. Ethics is also something that helps us to behave in a particular desired manner. So it is nothing but some principles that helps us to take right decisions, avoid wrong decisions. That is the main purpose of bioethics, so ethics. Now, what is bioethics then? So bioethics is a study of human health disease. So this is doctors, professionals, they are concerned with human health, disease, and treatment. investigating how the body works and what causes disease, how to prevent and control those diseases. These are our main job. So biomedical research is an integral part of development. So why do we need research? What if there is no research? Is it essential that we need to undertake some research? Yes, it's a part of, science. If you want that science to develop, research is essential. Without research, you cannot generate new knowledge. You cannot go further. So there can be many questions for which there is no answer. What is research? To finding answer to some unknown question. No, that is the basic meaning of research. So why do we need research? Research is to develop that particular science. So if we want to medical science to develop, then we need research. And for research, if you are the purpose of research is, I have mentioned, generate new knowledge, or sometimes to establish or refute previous knowledge. Maybe we have some knowledge, but ultimately it is found that that is not correct. So for that also we need to undertake some research. So refute the previous knowledge. So research has got many purposes. So research is essential. Research is essential for development of medical science. So that is why all of you are expected to undertake some research in your own field, so that you can contribute to the new knowledge bodies and help the future generation to work in more confidently and more efficiently. So medical science is evolving very fast. New challenges are coming. So as a part of this development, research is essential. Now, if you are to undertake research, you must adhere to the ethical principle. So there comes the importance of biomedical ethics. Without ethics, no research is possible. It is never possible. You cannot even think of any research. So ethics is an integral part of any research, especially in biomedical research. Now, yes, no biomedical research is possible without animal experiment. Now, animal experiment. I'm sure all of you have some knowledge about animal involvement of animals in our biomedical science. Okay, in our lab science physiology classes, practicals, we have used guinea pigs, frogs, and all these. And these are used to generate some knowledge in the field of physiology, anatomy, and all. So these are there. So animals are frequently used for animal experimentation. Now, often we use guinea pig animals. Thousands are killed, animals are killed and used. And sometimes human beings are also to be involved in research. So that is essential. So that part of that phase of research is also the last phase, that is the fourth phase, human trial. Before you get license or approval for some particular drugs or anything to be used, you need to get through this phase 4 trial. This phase 4 trial involves involvement of human being. Before that, you must have to complete your animal treatment. It has to be through the animal trial. Then you are allowed to undertake this. If everything goes okay, then you are allowed to undertake the trial. That's the of time you need to involve human being. So whenever you are involved in human being, this bioethics, the principle of bioethics. Okay, so whenever somebody is involving some human participant, no, it is not only for human being. Now the concept of animal ethics has also come. You cannot use animal for animal experiment without following the animal ethics. So in certain institution, you must have to doctor the ethics that you need to involve human being, human trial. That is the fourth phase trial. And whenever you are involving human being, you must follow the ethical principles. Without following ethical norms, you cannot involve any human being. So there is the importance of ethics of human being. is essential. And for that, ethical standard, ethical principles are also essential. Now see, many misconducts have been reported. Base medical science is the result of thousands of research over the years, centuries rather. The medicine that we see has not been developed in one day. It has come through many development, many researches, and now we can see the present status. And during this process, many misconducts while conducting research, particularly involving human beings, have been reported. So that is history. And it has been found that in many cases, these human beings are used like laboratory animals, like guinea pig. So how do we put these animals for laboratory, experiment? We put them in cage. No? So this is a photograph that shows that human are put into a cage to be used for experiment. So this photograph is really nice. You cannot put human in a case for some experiment. This is not that. So ethics comes into play in this kind of situation. So it has been reported that there has been many professional misconduct, gross violation of human rights, and participants are subjected to severe atrocities. Okay, so they didn't have any right or they didn't have any protection from this kind of unlawful activities, experiments. So this is the biomedical research. Now, professional misconduct. In that, many innocent people are used like guinea pigs for generating new knowledge or evidences for medical sciences. No, it cannot be. There was gross violation of human lives. So innocent people are used like guinea pig for generating new knowledge, evidences. Severe atrocities are reported during World War and during World War II, German medical practitioners conducted so many experiments on human beings, war prisoners, and that has raised a huge outcry. And ultimately, that gave rise to first concept of ethics. So the concept of modern ethics have come from this book. There are many beautiful stories. I'll tell you some major stories. So these German doctors, they are popularly known as Nazi doctors. If you read the history of Second World War, you will find them. So these Nazi doctors are basically German doctors, army doctors. These Nazi doctors performed unethical and abusive experiments on the war prisoners. There are many horrific treated human beings, the prisoners, war prisoners, especially Jews and others, like Philippines, forced. So they didn't have any choice. They are forced to participate involved in this particular study. Sir, and lewd false promises of why they are being used and what is the purpose and what will be done to them. So without any information, there was no informed consent, and there was no consent taken from them. And many of them who are involved in these different experiments, they died. So this was the reality during the Second World War. And due to this barbaric torture of human beings, there was huge outcry. And ultimately, discussed in different fora, and ultimately, for international statement on ethics, this is the genesis of modern ethics. It has come from the conduct, the code, 1947, and that code of conduct is called Nuremberg Code. So Nuremberg Code has given us certain basic bullet and principles, altogether 10, which have come from these experiments. These experiments, the experiment that Nazi doctors conducted during World War II, and that involved so many human beings, war prisoners. Many of them died, and that ultimately tried in a American court, and ultimately that court has come out with a certain specific bullet code of conduct, and that is the beginning of modern ethics. And this is popularly known as Nuremberg Code in the year 1947. Before that, there was no formal kind of ethical concept. Nothing was there. So this is the first official international statement of on morals. The Nazi doctors, they did many studies in the concentration camp. A large number of gypsies, Jews are used, considered enemies, and they were used for this experiment. They were used as videos. Like say, one is Dachau study, hypothermia study. Dachau is a place in the and there was a concentration. First, that is the first concentration camp, and they used to put the prisoners. And among these prisoners, they selected few people without giving them any information, without taking their consent. They used them for different kind of experiment to generate knowledge and to help treatment of the German army. So one of such study is Dachau hypothermia study conducted in 1943. This is on hypothermia. Then prisoners are forced and lubed by false promises. They are immersed in ice cold water. Response on body temperature and physiological responses were recorded, and ultimately this knowledge was utilized for the treatment of rewarming or treatment of hypothermia. If the army people, German army people, are exposed to this kind of hypothermic condition, then how they can treat them? To generate that knowledge, it was not known. So to generate this scientific knowledge, these evidences, they used to put these prisoners into ice cold water, and they used to monitor the physiological changes and also try different methods to resuscitate them. So that is how they did some experiment at Dachau. That is called the Dachau hypothermia test. And ultimately, most of the participants who were involved in the study, they all died. So that was the final outcome. They generated a lot of new knowledges, but ultimately the participants were dead. So that is again horrific test conducted by Nazi doctors. See, this is the thing. The photograph shows the person is immersed in a ice cold water tank, and the doctors, army doctors, they are observing, noting the recording the physiology in this, what is happening. And they also try to resuscitate how this, what all methods can be used to resuscitate them. So this is the thing. And most of the time, the experiments often result in the death of the participants. So that is one horrific experiment conducted by Nazi doctors. Now, this is again high altitude study. This high altitude study is again another study conducted on war prisoners. They used to planes, they used to move at very high altitude, the pressure is very low, and they get many health problems. So to know what are the consequences, how can they prevent this thing, how can they resuscitate these pilots who are flying at very high altitude, they conducted this study. This is called a high altitude study. Germany to help the German Air Force endurance, human endurance, how the human being can endure this situation, low pressure condition. So for that, to generate the knowledge, they conduct this high altitude study. And overexposure, most of the time, people used to die. Exposure, yes. And then again, this is a photograph of one famous researcher, Mengels. He's a Nazi research doctor. And Mengel. He was famous for notorious murder and gruesome experiments among tweets. He was interested to know the secrets of genetics. So for that, he conducted many studies among the tweets. He selected the tweets from among the families who were, the prisoners. And altogether, he selected 3,000 tweets, 3,000 tweets, and conducted many studies on these tweets. And ultimately, only 200 tweets survived. Rest of them all died. So you will be surprised to see what was the experiment he conducted on these. So, like say, mass blood transfusion, he tried mass blood transfusion. Without testing for blood group, nothing, he used to try this mass blood transfusion among these tweets. And you know the consequences. Ultimately, twins, they used to die. And then he used to put chemical drops, injections into the eyes. Because it was a false, conception, misconception that if you have a blue eye, it's not blue eyes, then you are elite, you are from elite society. So to change the color of iris, they used to put some dye into the eyes so that the iris gets blue color. So due to that chemical exposure, many of these twins they lost their vision and all. So that is one kind of experiment. And many times he removed the organs, castration, amputation without anesthesia, and diseases. This is again something very horrific. He purposely used to give diseases like typhus and tuberculosis. And there's a twin study, twin experiment. This is Mengel's twin experiment. You can see the photograph. So these are twins, two twins, and two twins. He used to give injection or some other method to one twins to get some particular disease like typhoid. He used to give infections to one twin. And there was no treatment for that particular disease at that time. And ultimately that twin used to die. And when he died, the other twin was killed, murdered by putting some injection phenol into the heart. And so both the twins died. And he used to do the autopsy and to see the changes, and last he used to compare what all this occurred during the test. So that was again another experiment this Mengel's did. So both the twins died. One died because of purposely introduced some disease, and the other twin, healthy twin, was killed to see the differences. A kind of case control study. One twin was kept as a control, and the other twin was used as a case, and he used to introduce diseases to that particular twin. So that is the situation. Males did this kind of event. About Linux engineering for the large experiment post-revolution California about STD research in Guatemala. This is again quite interesting. And STD, renal disease was very common during that time among army people. So there was not much knowledge available about treatment and all this. So they did one experiment in Guatemala in 1946-45. STD world. So there was no cure for gonorrhea and syphilis, and this was the most common disease among army. And gross violation. They did some study in Guatemala study. Gross violation of that human was there. Report. So what they did, the prisoner soldiers, psychiatric patients involved. They are all prisoners. Involved without their consent and intentionally exposed to infection. So they are not having the disease, but intentionally some condition was created so that they get this infection. STD, syphilis. So what they did, disease transmission. They were interested to know how the disease is transmitted. So for that, what they did, they hired commercial sex workers. The researchers used to hire the commercial sex workers who are the carrier of syphilis or gonorrhea. You know this, possibly you all know this. So the commercial sex workers, used to hire this. Researchers used to pay them. So for their service. So they used to hire these commercial sex workers, and these sex workers are allowed to enter the prison, and they used to have sexual relationship with the inmates. And ultimately, after having sex with these commercial sex workers who are the carriers of syphilis and gonorrhea, the inmates also develop this disease. So this is the way, by some deliberate and paid, kind of service, the inmates used to get this disease, syphilis and gonorrhea. That was the technique. Now they have intentionally exposed 1,300 people to it. They didn't acquire this disease by their own. All of them got this infection due to sexual relationship with commercial sex workers who are having fresh case of syphilis and gonorrhea. That is how they induce, help them to get this infection, these researchers. See how unethical this is. So that is the concept. So intentionally expose them, actually 1,300 people to STDs. And One sex worker, so it is I read it somewhere. 8 prisoners, she served 8 prisoners in just 71 days. So you can see how frequently they use them. So they used them as a case control, and treatment was offered only to half of them. Suppose 1,300 people got infected with some sort of STD, and they used to give treatment to only half of them. The rest of them are followed without giving any treatment. So that is how they used to assess the effectiveness of some treatment or something, and what is the progress of the disease why they did not get any treatment, those who did not get any treatment. So that is did this research, and they never considered the sex workers as the research participants. They have been just used as a commodity, that in violation of. So this is again another example of task. Then again, yes, another study was conducted in task, and this was on syphilis. And intentionally, they didn't inoculate this infection to the prisoners, research participants, but they intentionally withhold the treatment for 40 years. That time penicillin has come, but they did not give penicillin to those who have been suffering from this syphilis. The initial history of syphilis, how it progresses. Okay, syphilis is a long-run infection. No? It ultimately affects your central nervous system, brain, and that is they wanted to see the progress, natural history will ultimately happen. So just to know that knowledge, they withhold, intentionally withhold treatment for those patients who have been diagnosed as a case of syphilis. That was the kind of experiment. So they are deceived. There are a large number of people are deceived from this treatment. Participants who it was studied already. So that is the thing. So there are many experiments now in the Nuremberg Code. So as I said, that an American code, because these atrocities that has been reported and that was used human trial, and ultimately an American court was set, and they tried these particular criminal trials, held this criminal trial against crime against humanity. 23 Nazi doctors are accused, and 24 are sentenced to death. There are many others, and out of them, 24 are sentenced to death. Many others are prison, imprisonment, and ultimately these trial led to formula of Nuremberg Code, I have already mentioned. And that is the first written international statement on ethics. It is these codes are true even today. These codes, this Nuremberg codes, some of the principles are true even today. This is both trial, and they did this trial and ultimately come up with this codes. Now come to the Nuremberg Code. Please note these are very important. Altogether, there are 10 codes. It was given in 1947, they hold, but true even today, these are true. So the first thing is voluntary consent. So that is a must. Whenever you are involving any human being for yourself, you must take consent. It is not just forced consent, or you get this consent by some other means. It has to be informed consent. So they have mentioned categorically how this consent should be taken. It should be taken after giving prior information about all the aspects of your study. So it's a kind of informed consent. So voluntary consent. So voluntary should be voluntary, autonomous. The autonomy comes from that. So voluntary consent from all the human subjects is absolutely essential. That is the first Nuremberg Code. Experiment should yield fruitful results, which is unprocurable by other means. If these results are possible, we can achieve this, get these results by other means, don't involve this human. So that is also the second Nuremberg Code. And the third one is all cases, all experiments should be based on results of animal experimentation. So you cannot involve a human being. You cannot go for human trial without doing animal experiment. It has to pass through, get through the animal experiment. It has to be otherwise effective and safe. Then only you are allowed to conduct that particular study on human being. So that is the third code. And now the fourth code is it should avoid all unnecessary physical and mental suffering of the participants. No experiment should be done if there is prior evidence that there can be death or disabling injury. Degree of risk. Please remember this. Whenever you are conducting some research, the degree there is some risk. Always there is some inherent risk. The degree of risk should be less. Should never exceed. Degree of risk should never exceed humanitarian importance of the problem. So the risk can never exceed the benefit. Risk should always be less than benefit. Then only you are allowed to undertake that. Yes, that experiment. This is the fourth code. And seventh code is preparation. So the person researcher must have adequate preparation to conduct that skills and preparation abilities to conduct that particular research. And prevent the subject from even the remote possibilities of injury, disability, or death. These are essential. Without taking this preparation, you are not allowed to undertake any research. And then scientifically qualified person. Yes, anybody cannot do this. To conduct a research, but the person must have this required qualification. He should have this qualification, then only he can undertake that research. And the subject has the right to bring the experiment to an end at any time. So you can quit anytime. It's not that once you join, you have to continue with the program till the research till it ends. No, you have the right to quit that experiment anytime without showing any reason. And then the scientist in charge must be prepared to end. Yes, sometimes, as some pharmacological company invests lakhs of rupees to conduct some research, but they have some vested interest. But the researcher, if he finds that ultimately this research will ultimately come out with some negative result, then he has the right to stop that research immediately. So that autonomy, that capabilities, authority has to be available to researchers. So that is the thing. Nuremberg Code, I have mentioned about 10 codes which are very important for environmental research. Then again, this international covenant, again something that came in 1966. It says that no one shall be subject to torture or cruel or human or degrading treatment or punishment. And no study can be done without consent. This is the declaration that was accepted in International Covenant in 1966. Then Declaration of Helsinki, World Medical Association had added additional rules. It provides ethical guidelines addressing this thing, protect the well-being of the human subject. So whenever you are involving some human subject, you must be careful about protecting the well-being of the participants. Then respect for the individual, right to make informed choice, informed decision. So participants should be given the right to choose, to know about all informations and recognition of vulnerable groups. So these are some aspects of this research final areas. So the Declaration of Helsinki brought out these areas for conducting a research about bioethics. Now, the Belmont report in 1974, there was no system of critical review. IEC, I'll be talking about IEC. So the concept of critical review by some specially constituted committee, it came from this Belmont. Please note this in 1974. Before this report, there was no system. If we want to conduct some research, there was no system of a committee to review that before you undertake that. So the critical review by an expert committee, that concept came from Belmont report. Belmont reports recommended review of protocol. All of you, those who have this pursuing your postgraduate studies, you must have prepared the protocol. And once you prepare the protocol, you cannot jump on the study itself, because that protocol has to be submitted to some special committee, expert committee. And that expert committee will critically review the ins and outs and ethical issues, how you are going to address these ethical issues. And if it is found to be okay and approved by that expert committee, then only you are allowed to undertake that study. So that is the procedure. So this concept of review of the protocol by some expert committee that came from this Belmont report in 1974. So that is again a milestone, development in the history of biomedical research. So, the Belmont report also mentioned three fundamental ethical principles: respect for the person, beneficence, and justice. I will continue to discuss this in later. So, basic principles, yes. So, ultimately, ethical committee and institutional review board, that expert committee is known as ethical committee institutional review board. They are supposed to review and monitor the progress of the research, and it has been also made essential that all researchers must have exposure to good clinical practice, GCP. Sir will be talking on GCP, sir. So this is also an essential part. Anybody cannot undertake a research unless he does this. Course on GCP, good clinical practice. So that is also essential for researchers to undergo. And ethical issues always this thing. Please remember, ethical issues should always outweigh the benefits. So benefits, for any benefits, you cannot ignore the ethical issues. So ethical issues must be considered first. Then only the question of benefits now. So that is the thing. Now, now say in India, regarding these ethical issues, to set the guideline for this biomedical research principles, ICMR, the next body, they have come out with national guideline for biomedical research. So it is available. This book is available in the public domain, and everyone should visit that domain, and you can see you will have a basic idea about what all things you need to do, how this research is conducted. So this is the guideline for biomedical research by ICMR. It has been revised many times, so you can always visit the website. Now, come to the principles of medical ethics. Primarily, there are four basic principles, like say, autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, and justice. So these make the four primary and basic principles of any research, any research, biomedical research. What are they? Like say, autonomy. So autonomy is something you can always understand. Person should be informed about what all things he is expected to do, what all risks are involved, possible risks he may face, and what all outcomes are possible. So everything, all critical information should be available to the participants before he joins your study. And it is also mentioned that anytime, once he has given a consent to participate, it's not that he has to continue, even if he doesn't like to continue. So he has full authority to quit this study anytime, whatever may come in your study. He is not bothered about that. So he has full autonomy to quit this study anytime. And not only that, for that he doesn't have to show any reason. Without showing any reason, these are categorically mentioned, so that full autonomy is ensured. So autonomy is the first principle, and that is to the extent of this. So autonomy. So he has got respect for this is protect the respect to human rights, dignity, and freedom. And beneficence is doing good. As I said that you always should have some to do some good. You may not be able to do some very good. That is okay. That is acceptable. You may not be successful, but your attempt should be always for doing some good. And non-maleficence, that is no harm. At no point of time, you are allowed to do any harm to the participant. So that is the third. And the fourth one is justice. So your decisions and benefits should go equally to everyone. It cannot be just you are doing some study on poor things, and ultimately the benefits only the rich people are getting the benefits. This is injustice. So justice is the fourth basic principle of medical ethics. And now others, on the basis of this four, this thing. Kind of other principles are there. You can just read it. Principle of essentiality, principle of voluntariness, non-exploitation, social responsibility, ensuring privacy and confidentiality, personal data, individual data. You cannot share without his permission, and risk minimization, professional competency, maximization of benefit, institutional environment, transparency and accountability, totality, responsibility, and environmental protection. So all these are also important for conducting research. So these are also important for doing research. Now, limit informed consent is something. This is absolutely essential to get this informed consent from the possible future participant. So there is a specialized technique how to get this informed consent that can be discussed in other forums. I have come to the end of my presentation. So I see the characteristics. It's typically discussed in a separate forum. So now come to the last part. These are the differences, and we can have a look on these differences on which I have developed this particular presentation. Thank you very much.